What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. Tonight we got a special one for you. I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna see if you like it. Tonight we're gonna do a Friday night double feature where I'm gonna take two movies that either feature a leading actor or they have a similar premise, and I'm gonna rate them on these 7 things that you see right in front of you, and we'll talk about them a little bit more as we go through it. And then as we move through this series, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But it's all pretty straightforward stuff. Story, cast, directing, music, box office, all those work. Some of them are my opinion, some of them are not, and that's the beauty of it, is I don't 100% control the outcome. I definitely heavily sway. I have an opinion. It's my channel. But there are going to be some situations where my favorite movie might not come out on top. But let's go ahead and get into it. Now, although these movies' stories could not be more different, I'm still going to give them the same score. I'm going to give it a 6 for both because they're really just anchored on the premise. You have machines coming together and trying to take over the world, and then you have 4 buddies who take a wrong turn to avoid some traffic and run into a real bad situation. So one is absolutely bonkers, the other is grounded in reality, but there's not anything else that really chew on outside of that. We're just these characters are thrust into these situations and they just have to kind of react to those things that are happening to them. And the situation doesn't really change much. The people are stuck in the truck stop through most of that movie, and our boys are on the run. Now, I know the location changes, but it really doesn't change. You know, they go, they hide, they get found, they run. They go, they hide, they get found. They, just rinse and repeat. So what I'm saying is that's really all we have story-wise. And it's enough to get you a 6, but it's not enough to give you a 10. Now, cast is where we're going to see a little bit of separation for the first time. Maximum Overdrive is one of Emilio Estevez's first movies. It's only a year after Breakfast Club. He's still pretty raw. He doesn't even turn in one of his top 5 performances, I would say. He's just here. He does a serviceable job. He's fine. I would say Pat Hingle, the great character actor, actually steals the show. Even though he's a deplorable person, he's certainly the most memorable person in the movie. Now, Judgment Day has a star-studded cast. You've got Emilio Estevez, and he is prime Mighty Duck Man at this point. He has never been more popular. You've got Cuba Gooding Jr. as one of the best friends, Mike. He does phenomenal. Has a couple moments to shine here. Dennis Leary's Fallon is a memorable villain to me, okay? I know that Dennis Leary can be a little silly at times, but he really portrays that psychotic, unhinged. You believe that he is 1 second away from blowing everybody's brains out. You believe it, and that makes him terrifying. Stephen Dorff plays the younger brother to Frank and starts off as just kind of a generic younger brother who's angry and always getting into trouble, and we've seen that trope 1,000 times. But once he's thrust into the shit, he crumbles, and it's actually kind of nice to see that humility. He realizes that his brother is actually the one that stepped up and kept his cool when everybody else was either getting killed or losing their freaking minds. So phenomenal, phenomenal stuff there. I absolutely love that. We also have Jeremy Piven is perfectly cast as that. I mean, we know him at this point. He can play the slimy greaseball, freaking I move cars motherfucker kind of guy. So and this is like that before that. So he has a couple of really standout moments. The scene on the roof with Fallon is a highlight. I love the cast of this movie. And then you also have Peter Green, who is a great character actor. You know the face. He's in a lot of movies, and he's always, if not always, one of the villains. So the cast, not even a contest. You got 8 for Judgment Day. You only got 4 for Maximum Overdrive. That's a lopsided victory if I've ever seen one. The acting is much better in Judgment Day. There are parts where it's pretty silly too, but Maximum Overdrive, I mean, we made you!
Wanna know!
Sons of bitches!
Wanna know! Bill, goddammit, let go of me!
We made you!
Wanna know! Get back here!
Can't you understand?
Wanna know!
You can't do this! We made you!
that? We made you! There is some terrible acting. I don't know if it was because there was no direction, but there's definitely a lot of moments in Maximum Overdrive where the actors just seem like they're doing whatever the hell they want. So, for that reason, it's going to be a 4. Now, directing is a area where one of the movies could have taken a huge jump because Maximum Overdrive was the only directing credit from Stephen King. He was directing an adaptation of his own work, and for some reason it just didn't work, and that reason is cocaine. And probably natural ability to direct. But he was admittedly coked out of his mind and didn't know what the hell he was doing. So the movie shows. So I'm going to give him a big fat goose egg because I don't think that he really contributed anything meaningful to this movie outside of the inspiration. So, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about directing. And I think he probably failed. He probably agree. Unfortunately, he failed in almost every way a director could. I bet you he'd do a fine job if he gave it another chance and was sober, but we may never see that. But anyway, I'm going to give Maximum Overdrive a 0. Judgment Night, I'm not going to give it a high score. Stephen Hopkins directed Predator 2 and A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5. So it's not like the dude is knocking out home runs. But there are moments in this movie that are well shot, I mean, he keeps the pace up. I do like that. We don't spend a lot of time before we're kind of thrust into it. He knows what he's got. He knows that we want to see these guys in peril. So I'm going to give him a 4. I think that he does a good job. When you have a cast this talented, it's not the director. It's the cast. They're showing up. They are the reason that we watch this movie, the reason that I watch this movie, and the reason that I'll recommend it to anybody that's never seen it is because of the cast. So, but I'll give him a 4. He knew what he needed to do to get the movie done and movie shot and done, well enough. So, certainly doesn't deserve a 0 or 1. It's not Stephen King level bad. So anyway, Stephen, I love you. I'm sorry. I love the movie, but I think we can all agree not the best directing work. Moving on. Now, music is where we get our first big win for Maximum Overdrive because the entire soundtrack is AC/DC. So every time something kicks in, yeah, it's a hard AC/DC track kicking it to the back. Or you have that iconic score where they're like, every time one of the machines come to life. So those two things together just make for an incredible audio experience. Even though the stuff that you see is crazy at times, at least you know that the soundtrack, the score is going to keep you engaged, keep you into it. So I had a blast. 10 out of 10. It doesn't get much better than this when it comes to watching a movie. Even a cheap, shitty movie can still get it right, and I think they did. So I'm going to give them a perfect score, 10 out of 10. Judgment Night does a good job of capturing that 90s feel. They have this Fallen song kind of, in the beginning and the end. I like that song a lot. It really takes me back to that time. But really, the rest of the score is just kind of keeping you in the moment. They don't try to detract you from what's going on in the film. And I think that works for the film, but it's certainly not a highlight of the film. So I'm going to give it a 5 because, again, you have the iconic song, but really nothing else. So 10 to 5, Maximum Overdrive gets a nice win, gets some points back. So let's see what happens. We're getting towards the end now. This is the last little bit that I control. The rest of it is going to be box office and then, the IMDb score and the tomato meter score, the critic score. So we'll see where we end up. Let's get to it, though. All right, y'all, the next one's going to be pretty straightforward and pretty easy to explain. It's just box office revenue. Which one made more money? And this one was pretty decisive, 12 million to 7 million in favor of Judgment Day. So it's going to get the 3-point kick, which really helps solidify its lead. So let's see what happens next with the IMDb ranking. Now, lastly, we're going to be looking at the IMDb scores and the tomato meter scores to get our final little look at what the audiences and the critics thought of these movies. Maximum Overdrive had an IMDb score of 5 and a tomato meter score of 1.5 based off the way I'm converting these. Whereas Judgment Night had a IMDb score of 7 and a tomato meter score of 3.5. So our grand totals are 26.5 for Maximum Overdrive and 36.5 for Judgment Night. It's a pretty definitive victory for what I do feel is the superior film, regardless of my personal affection for Maximum Overdrive. I adore that movie. I would probably pick it over Judgment Night, but it's purely because Maximum Overdrive is so nostalgic for me. It's such a big part of my childhood. Adored that movie growing up. It wasn't until I got a little bit older that I was introduced to Judgment Night, and that makes sense. Some of the themes, some of the topics are a little bit more adult, but I think it is a beautifully done movie, beautifully acted movie. The cast was amazing. Every single one of them had a moment to shine. So I think that it justifiably came out on top. And now I'm interested to see. Now we have kind of like a benchmark, a decent movie. I mean, some of these scores were good, some of them weren't good, but they're fairly average. So I would say that's a pretty good average movie. So let's see what's the first one that's going to break 40. I want predictions down below. Comment down below. Let me know, what movie do you think is going to be the first one to break 40, break 50? We're going to get anything to break 60? What's the prediction? Because obviously 70 is the perfect score. We're never going to see 70. Are we going to see 60? Let me know. I'm going to try to do these fairly often. If you have any ideas, shoot them at me. As always, thank you all very much. Be good people. Be good to each other. Have a great weekend. Watch 2 movies if you want. But stay safe. Have fun. Love you. Bye.